The wealthiest counties in America almost all vote for Democrats and vote for Joe Biden. The Democrat Party is a party of the permanent wealthy class, where the Republican Party.
I agree. I think both parties are.
But hold on. But let me just. Bernie Sanders is a fraud and a fake, because as he is talking about like fighting the oligarchy, everything that he would do would crush innovation, crush entrepreneurship, and not actually help the American middle class. And this is why he refuses to stand with Donald Trump every time he does something good that would actually help middle class workers. Final thought.
But that was true about Donald Trump. Rural towns wouldn't be dying. Donald Trump gave cash cuts to corporations that hired Goldman Sachs elites and didn't touch the wage system. The working class got slogans and sweets, while the billionaires he called out got richer. That's not draining the swamp. That's filling it.
When Trump was there for 4 years, rural America actually saw more wage gains than urban America. For 4 years.
From Obama's economy.
Hold on. You know that's rubbish, man.
The next president inherits the economy based on what president?
First of all, that's such an oversimplification, sloppy, and shallow analysis of how economics works. But most importantly, and I think you can acknowledge this, is that Donald Trump, what he did in the first term, we saw a blue-collar miracle, a blue-collar boom. The people that worked in manufacture saw their wages actually go up higher than the top 1%. And that is why blue-collar workers voted for Donald Trump so significantly this last election. That's why Trump is doing tariffs on China. Again, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. And finally, you guys know that gas...
the Democrats are super socially progressive and don't relate to the working class anymore.
Gas prices, gas prices are going down dramatically, and you guys are going to see...
It's still $3.10. I thought it would be $2 by now.
Again, it depends on where you are in the country, but as far as West Texas oil crude, it was at $75 a barrel almost a week and a half ago. Now it's near $55 a barrel. I'm not sure where it is today. But let me just kind of close with this. It's easy and tempting, and I want to just caution you, because you're a Catholic and a man of faith. I want you to pray about this, and I want you to think about this. It's tempting to want to believe in socialism. It is a fact that socialism, before you get to the second sentence, socialism violates 2 out of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not covet, and thou shalt not steal.
So what about the Eastern European countries that have the sign of socialistic...
Well, let's talk about it.
Like Hungary, Poland?
Yes, Hungary is very socially conservative, and they have some socialist, ideas. Let me ask you a question. Can you name a single Hungarian company?
I don't know any Hungarian companies.
Can you name a single Hungarian entrepreneur?
Not I've heard of.
Can you name a single Polish entrepreneur?
No, because I don't live in Poland.
No, hold on. But you can name Chinese companies and Japanese companies and Korean companies. The point being is this. Be careful when you indulge in the cheap money of socialism, because all of a sudden, you don't become very innovative. You don't lead the world in AI or tech or in the top companies. And so, yes, okay, yeah, we could redistribute the wealth and become a mediocre country where wages kind of stagnate. We're no longer a free society where people flock here to start businesses. I think that's radically dangerous. I think it's radically dangerous for us to compromise on a bedrock of mediocrity. There's some things Hungary likes that I do. There's something Poland likes that I do. But socialism, at its core, is this belief that the state will take care of you. We as conservatives believe, first and foremost, the family takes care of you, and then the church, and last case necessary, then the state. Have a great Holy Week. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Hi, Charlie. I'm Aiden. Just want to start by prefacing a couple things. I'm sorry about those first couple people, especially the second one. That's absurd.
You don't have to apologize to me, but yeah.
Well, I don't want that to be how we represent Boise State, because that's not how I feel like we represent Boise State. So, and then just a couple other things. I'm just kind of getting into politics, but I do have a disagreeing point, and I wonder if you can fill me in on some things. So, as you know, we get a lot of our imports from Canada, like semiconductors, microchips, oil, Mexico, fruits and vegetables, and, pharmaceuticals from China and
Avocados
India.
from Mexico.
Avocados. There you go. I'm wondering if you think it's a good idea what Trump's doing in imposing all of these tariffs at once, rather than maybe taking a couple years to build factories and train workers to gradually improve domestic production. Just wondering your thoughts on that.
First of all, we're in the midst of a 90-day pause. I think that was prudent. All of the tariff energy, in my opinion, should be focused on China. We are far too reliant on China, from lithium ion to rare earth minerals to vitamin C to vitamin D. We make no vitamin C in our own body. You need vitamin C literally to live. China has cornered the ascorbic acid market, which is vitamin C. all of the tariffs should eventually be focused on China. That I completely support. Canada, Mexico, we need better deals. We should not be reliant on importing electricity from Canada. At any time, they can shut you off. Now, I fully acknowledge that a trade deficit in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. Do you know when a trade deficit is bad? When that other country can shut you off from trading. That's really bad. And that's what the Chinese can do. You become a vassal state,
Well, that's what they are doing right now, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so that proves the point, actually. That proves that we are too reliant on them. Rare earth minerals, we need to mine them again. We need to bring industrial manufacturing jobs back to this country, which I'm very hopeful that we'll do. Just today, we saw Toyota and Hyundai announce multi-billions dollars of investment. NVIDIA yesterday announced a $500 billion investment in the United States of America. Donald Trump has brought over $2 trillion of investments already back to this country. And tariffs as a leverage tool are largely to thank for that.
Yeah. So then why have they kept getting paused and paused and paused and rethought over? What's the deal behind that? Why can't we just go through
Well,
with
the
it?
Chinese ones are not paused. That's important. Understand that. So the Chinese ones are not paused. The other ones are paused because the strategy, as we are now learning, was a shock and awe strategy to get people to the table to show Vietnam, Japan, and South Korea. Those are the three big ones, in particular, that we mean business. Now, why does Vietnam matter? Vietnam matters because so many thousands of jobs, millions of jobs left China and then went to Vietnam as a way to try to weaken China. And so, in my opinion, I like tariffs, the forcing function to bring people to the table.
Yeah, I see your point, but when tariffs were created, the whole point of them was not just to make money and conduct business. It was to promote domestic production.
Well, there's
right?
three. You're right. Sorry to interrupt. So there are two stated goals of tariffs. Trump has invented a third. So the first stated goal of the tariff is to create tax revenue so that the government can be funded. The second of which is also kind of national security, to protect industry.
Yeah.
Trump has invented a third. It's used as a negotiating tool.
Unfortunately.
Well, I think it's actually fortunately. Look at how great these deals are that are going to be brokered. You'll see these countries would not be coming to the table nearly as fast or as focused if it wasn't for Trump slapping tariffs on them. So thank you for your question. Do you want a hat?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi. All right, no problem. Hello, Charlie. I am Miles Humphreys from Venice Beach, California. Yes, I am Satan incarnate of Idaho. But personally, for me, I don't really identify based on state lines. I identify myself as an American. And that shows just how, personally for me, how we are very inclusive in nature, based beyond dividing lines of states, but rather the dividing lines of a nation. I believe in strong borders. I believe in borders and the natural right of their such. Tribes have established it in the nature of social organization. But I personally believe that due to Trump's policies and due to his language and the character that he has personified, it is making America look indifferent to the rest of the world, to go against American values of treating everybody neighborly and equally based on the Christian values that we were founded by. So I just wanted to ask you, is that only just one side of the perspective, or is it a coin where there's another face to it?
Okay, so you say neighborly. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Has Mexico slashed the drug cartels? Have they been neighborly to us?
No, they have not.
Yeah, and so when you have 100,000 people dying of drug overdoses in your country,
Correct.
a lot in Idaho, by the way, a lot of drug overdoses in Idaho, way too many. I think that calling them out for what they are as a foreign terrorist organization is appropriate.
Okay. All right. So, but to me, calling them out as a foreign terrorist organization, is that just the whole of Mexico, or is it just the individual of those participating in those
You got to use
hostile activities?
You have to use examples of what you are criticizing Trump of, but
Okay. All right. Personally, for me, I am criticizing his policies with tariffs. I believe it is important to bring back the economic capabilities of the United States and bringing back manufacturing. But I believe that due to his very blunt mafia tactics of just come to the table immediately, that it creates an unfair persona of American diplomacy.
got it. Okay, so what persona? Let me ask you a question. I think I have a good question for you.
Okay.
Were you more comfortable with Joe Biden's persona?
No, I was not.
What? How about Obama's?
Obama, I don't know the man. I was too
Okay.
young.
What persona are you comfortable with the president having?
Personally, for me, I just feel that a cult of personality is what a president needs, and definitely Trump has that. But it rubs people off the wrong way about the personality that he possesses of being a strong man, something like Theodore Roosevelt and sorts.
So yeah, I won't say we have disagreement. Let me just tell you my opinion, then we'll get to the next question.
Okay.
I think it's time that we actually have a strong man as an American president,
All right.
not whatever Joe Biden was. And we need someone that acts with energy and spirit and vitality. I
Okay.
mean, we had Joe Biden that wasn't even a functioning human being the last 2 years as president.
Correct.
And I think a president that is willing to push the boundaries for the United States of America is exactly what we voted for in major numbers in November.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, disagreements, guys. Yeah. You got your own camera guy.
I do. This is my friend Sam. You say college is a scam, so I drove 4 hours here just so I could debate you on this. I've been in school for 4 years, majoring in English, and my education means a lot to me. I've put in a lot of work to be here.
What school?
University of Utah.
Okay, cool.
And so I find it extremely disrespectful for you to say that college is a scam, not just to me, but everyone here that's also going to school.
What's your favorite Charles Dickens book?
That was like push for, like I come for, like that's like all around there.
No, tell me which one?
The sixth one.
I can't hear what you're saying.
Just like the one like with Pushmere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how about your favorite Jane Austen novel?
Oh, I don't know who that is. Jane Austen?
You're
Yeah.
an English major.
Yeah. Well,
What's
it's
your-
like I come for it, so it's like with my
what's your
dad's tuition.
favorite? I'm gonna give you another chance.
'Kay.
What's your favorite Jane Austen novel?
Harry Potter?
You've been there for 4 years?
4.5. Well, I have one more question.
You are proving that college is indeed a scam.
Okay. Well, my dad paid a lot of money so I could go to college, and I just think what qualifies you to say that college is a scam? Just to get views on TikTok.
You almost had me for a while, but no, obviously you're being a troll, and that's fine. Yeah, look, college is a scam. Half the people in this audience, if they get a job, they'll get a job that doesn't require a college degree. For half the people in this audience, going to college is completely unnecessary. The vast majority of the jobs that you're going to enter into are going to be replaced by robotics or AI, unfortunately, in the next 5 years. And so you go to college a lot of the time to study things that don't matter, to find jobs that don't exist.
Do you find it's like push that is like come for like with Pushmere?
I can't.
To Pushmere.
Yeah, not sure what you're saying.
Is that come for like switch like for like with the education system?
Yes.
Why?
Because again, I can't tell if you're being a comedian or not, so I'm trying to sense. But if you are actually
I'm serious.
so you are an English major, you don't know
Yeah.
who Jane Austen is.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like she's one of the most important writers in the history of Western civilization, and like without a doubt.
Just because I go to school doesn't mean like
No, you're
Jane
you're getting
Austen
an
is,
English
like, a
degree.
come for
If
it,
you're
like, that is like push like what is like somewhere right here.
no, if you're getting, I can't. All right. Thank you for your time.
Sorry, I'm just mumbling.
Yeah, I know.
Will you sign my shirt?
I'm good. Thank you, man. All
Thanks,
right.
Charlie.
Thank you for being here.
Hey, Charlie. Okay, I have a real quick question. Just a little bit of preface. I'm going to get straight to the point, but I need to start with the first question. You love the Bible, correct?
It's the word of God.
Exactly. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Yes, exactly. So I'm just here not necessarily to debate, but more to understand your line of reasoning. I want to understand how when you practice and preach religious governance and issues like that, as with your abortion and status on gay marriage, why don't you also support things like free lunches for kids? The Bible over 2,000 times mentions it, helping the needy at every instance, and that if you don't help the needy, you are not doing the word of God and he will not help you.
Yeah, great. Did I mention the Bible once in my abortion argument earlier?
Okay, I don't know. I'm just
No,
thinking
you
of
didn't. I just want to be clear, though. But
I'm just thinking of what I've heard before. Sorry.
No, but
about that.
I do believe it's the word of God. Of course we should help the needy. Can you show me a specific verse where it says make sure you pay a bunch of money to the government in taxes to help the needy?
I would say specifically that I think as Christians, it should be the number one priority to find a system that works to make sure that every single person is fed. And I think it truly, if we're looking at the word of God, you have to look at the fact that you should go through every cost yourself. As the Bible specifically says, I can pull up a verse on my phone right now that says specifically in the Bible that you should feed the needy at the cost to yourself. You should help those in needy at cost to yourself. If it's a couple pennies out of my tax dollars to feed those don't have food, I think that's a Christian obligation of the government to fulfill.
No, that again, it's never biblically obligated to use the state to do that.
Okay,
The
but
church
then
should do that.
Okay, perfect.
And that's so I personally give a fair amount of my tithes and my donations to local churches to help do these things, and I hope everybody else does that as well.
Okay.
And in fact, I
this kind
believe
of gets
you.
to the meat of my question. If I could get more to the meat of the question, then. So why do you think there should be some policies that should be governed at the state level, but then not other policies when it's sort of governed like this, when it's specifically over 2,000 times in the Bible?
Right. So we go back to the Constitution because that's our core governance. So if it's in the Constitution, it should be there, such as border security, national security, printing of money, the Treasury, enforcing of interstate commerce, Department of Justice, those tariffs, collecting of duties. However, the government providing food to its citizenry is not in the Constitution, and it should be a last gap effort. And I suppose the question is, I don't know if you're a Christian or not, and if you are, wouldn't you say it's better for churches to feed people than the government to feed people?
Yeah, okay, so I am a Christian, and I do think that by any means necessary, the number one priority of every single citizen in society under Christian values, as you like to preach, should be to help their fellow man, to help them feed, help them get clothes, and help the needy. And I think that out here preaching, if you think that the government is a means of, at the end of the day, it's inevitable, the government is inevitable. And I think that we have to have that means that has such a mass scale of outreach to help feed people and to help give them their needs. I think that churches, they lack a lot of central organization that the government has to help reach out with them to help feed them.
Let me ask you a hypothetical. If all the money we spend on the government to feed people went away, do you think the church would step up and make sure there's not a single hungry person in America?
I think that they would try, but again, I think that the government is a unique position that as Christians we should be using to fulfill the will of God.
How is the government in a better position than the church? Build that out for me.
Yeah.
Are there more churches or more government buildings in America?
Yeah, so let me actually get to that. Can the church make laws?
Well, no, but the church actually
exactly. The church
can
can't make
collect
laws.
money and actually deploy it much more effectively than the federal government can. In fact,
okay, perfect. A question then. I got on taxes. I would love if my tax dollars went to helping people who needed food. That's my argument here.
well,
I think that
it
should
does.
be
Over
customized.
$1 trillion a year goes to food stamps and SNAP and Medicaid.
Perfect,
So,
and I'm glad with
no,
that. But
actually, it doesn't help them nearly as much as you think. Let me tell you why. Because then we subsidize bad eating habits of the poor, so that the working poor is very obese, so they go buy Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Frito-Lays, and the church is not involved, where the church would then say, hey, instead of going to the local grocery store with a bunch of food stamps and SNAP benefits, why don't you come by our church and we'll feed all of you and a much more healthy meal made by our own members, and then you can hear the gospel afterwards. That's the church in practice. What the government does, and I want you to respond, what the government does is it creates distance, and it creates separation, and it creates murkiness between the person issuing the help and the person receiving the help. What private charity and philanthropy does, as the church designed it, is it's much more relational. So there's a single mom coming into the church saying, I can't feed my kids, I need help. I would believe that every church in America would not say, sorry, we're closed here. They would say, here's our food bank. Here's how we can help you. We will cook you a meal. We will give you what you want. Where the faceless government, we've seen this in Europe, and I don't mean to go on too long about this. In Europe, the state is huge, the government is huge, and the church is small. The church does not do charity. It does not do food banks. It does very little of that because the government takes care of it. I actually think that's deeply unhealthy. I want a small government and a big church, where Europe has a big government and a small church.
Okay, I have a few key arguments against that. Just one quickly, I think that people, despite like their monetary status and like where they stand in society, like monetarily, I think that they should be able to choose what food they get to some extent at the grocery store. But also too, on that,
I'm just going to interrupt real quick. A lot of systems don't have nutritional diet plans out for them because they believe that's too much of an investment or too possessive over the human being. So that's the reason why a lot of people believe that communism or the socialist democrats are a failure, because we still have socialism. If anything, you look at the system right now, we're in a socialist environment. And you can ask people about that, but the socialism itself is EBT, Section 8, financial aid, what else? There's like a couple other programs, like jobs programs, and none of them are working. We have homelessness on a rampant scale. So a lot of the leftists that sell you the idea of socialism cannot deliver. And since they don't believe in philanthropy, they believe in nepotism, and then using that nepotism to level up their own friends or their own families creates this monarchy of classist supremacy that leads to all the leftists being at the top of the ladder while all the rest of them are thrown at the bottom, which is why a lot of their ideologies don't actually help anybody. This is why the church comes in. The church actually sees human beings. The church actually starts to understand the human issues and the human struggle, which is why a lot of these ideologies oftentimes rely on a person who creates civilization, which is going to be a church, which is going to be a place that actually sees a human that needs resources. And the reason for that is because they trust the idea that church teaches you humanity, whereas the government teaches you a statistic to exterminate somebody. So somebody would be pushed off to be killed off, or they're pushed off to be juche, which is figure it out yourself because government's not going to help you, which is the government's own conservatism pushed into the idea of leftist ideology, which is they intently set up conservative ideology to fail because none of them want to help each other on the left. They just want to exploit each other. And then when they help people, it's probably the worst human on the earth because they want to help the worst of the worst in order to say that you're just hating on these certain types of people, you're hating on certain types of races, which is tokenism. They want to purchase people, which is why a lot of the leftists I met were a lot of white supremacists who don't call themselves supremacists, who say you don't really know politics because you called me a white supremacist mentality, which a lot of these leftists and socialist Democrats fail to deliver because they're just super liberals, and that's all they are. Every single one wants to play a purity test. They want to play that they didn't say mean words at one point in their life to make you feel better. And then they don't deliver on legislation. They don't deliver on change in any situations. They don't like anyone that's a person of color that disagrees with them. They don't even like listening to another person's opinion, which is why a lot of the times, as a leftist myself, I have to fight a lot of these people because they don't deliver anything. Multi-billion dollar donations into their foundations, $1 trillion into the food stamps program, and still we have starving homeless people because all they want to do is get richer and richer. You have a bunch of people like AOC, Bernie Sanders, who are rich and well established and call themselves poor to make other people feel like they're relatable. You have people like Hassan Piker, who's a multimillionaire, who says black people should listen to him and shouldn't listen to anything they think and only listen to his opinion, and then wants to deport people because they don't want to listen to some Asian supremacy ideology from like Vietnam or China, where it's a one race society that pushes out gay people. So the concept is pretty simple. None of them really understand what it means to be a human being because they want to quote just an ideology from hundreds of years ago while wearing Cartier and Gucci and Versace, while siding with a bunch of rich people they used to sleep with in order to uplift themselves to see themselves as a tribal unity echo chamber of people who don't know what they're talking about. This is why a lot of leftists don't really like each other, while the right wing has a consolidation of people who actually understand foundational support systems. These support systems on the right wing are trying to be replicated on the left, but are destroyed continuously by jealous people like a Palestinian running to food aid during Israel bombings. Now, because of this, a lot of people don't really understand how to build a political society on the left wing because a lot of them come from what they would claim is working jobs, but isn't considered what a lot of them would call a real job. Because a lot of these people who live in these rich areas make over six figures and still call themselves poor, while a lot of people can work with six figures and actually make a life out of themselves because they know how to manage their money better. This issue, of course, is the independence ideology that none of them have because they want rugged individualism. They want socialism with their rich friends, and then they want rugged individualism for those who disobey the socialist ideology. This is creating a supremacist of white supremacy, a class supremacy, which oftentimes, if you look at the wealth gaps, would oftentimes favor a lot of white people because a lot of white people want to side with the ideology that they know what they are doing. Now, because of this, a lot of these people are going to start to issue what I would deem is a lot more rugged individualism as a punishment system. And they'll try to push you into homelessness. So when you realize the world is dependent on Darwinism or a capitalist society, you're going to switch over to the right wing. So I believe the incompetence that is sold on the left wing is intentional. So when you realize that siding with them, helping any of them get their people elected, will become a regret over time, except for the white people who are coincidentally always on the winning side, getting jobs offered to them, and the tokens who oftentimes get handouts in order to make themselves feel better. Which is why they use a lot of eugenics in order to push their agenda, which is going to push a lot of more white supremacy ideology as a whole. Now, I believe Charlie has seen a lot of this, which is why a lot of the times he seems as a relatable person, because he sees a lot of the ideologies of victimhood a lot of the ideologies of failed systems, and a lot of the ideologies of people who don't understand economics, that they want to push for a system that's over a trillion dollars funded and still has not a single group of workers unions to show for it except for the Teamsters who sided with Trump during his election period. So a lot of these people don't actually have a functional ideology. They pocket the fundraising money. A lot of them have got exposed recently by using the money the wrong way. And they still don't take accountability for any of their actions because their entire ideology was to be a mafia of the left rather than an ideology of actually uplifting anyone. And they're exposed continuously for being incompetent, complacent, and hateful toward Latinos because they use black people more than Latinos for tokens, which has inflated the price overall, and therefore they now are known as like plantation owners, where they hate Latinos for knowing exactly how they play people, because just like Nelson Mandela, we are going to have to sit here and pretend like we're in a place that accepts all people, but has weirdly only rejected and thrown away Latinos. Which is why a lot of Latinos are turning conservative or right wing, because we spent our lives being told our opinions of racism that we face doesn't matter, because it always comes from a bunch of tokenized black people and black people as a whole who are crying for reparations and telling everyone that Native Americans or the Latino enslaved black people, and therefore we must listen to the Muslims who are historically enslaving the most people throughout history through Arab nations and have continuously used black people as a shield to attack the Latinos. You see this with people like Hassan and AOC who say the Latinos are all in the ICE administration or ICE are recruited by federal police or ICE, immigration police, and they use this in order to divide and conquer a lot of Latino people. And you see this with a lot of the racist rhetoric that a lot of them push in order to take out any target they want that is seen as a leftist Latino, or anyone that is on the left that overall that understands what is happening in our society. This is why, understandably, when you see socialism start to rise, you notice a big circle of people who hate white people but marry white people and start dating white people, and then look down on black or brown people as an inferior people, inferior classes, inferior races, inferior cultures, and then they laugh at them as they get a customer service voice black person or someone with trauma in their past in order to use as the most modernized trending token to defend themselves from a failing system that none of them studied to help or fix because they didn't study to uplift anyone. They didn't study to make any unions. They didn't study to improve the economy. They didn't study to give you a plan of the future. They didn't study on who to help in our society. And they think the biggest influence they should invest in is a white guy who goes around knocking on doors to appeal to white people, to then end up creating white socialism that is the most unappealing ideology anyone has ever seen because it excludes the black and brown that the socialism was there in the first place to support. This is why you have a huge uprising of socialists who are in the middle class, which are champagne socialists because they come from multi-million-dollar families sometimes, and they utilize their multi-million-dollar backing in order to push for more socialist policies that at the end of the day, when they get bored of and drop of out of trend, they just pick up a conservative right-wing ideology or just a regular right Republican ideology where they just get less taxes, more money, and start connecting with people who are tired of the socialist policies that never actually succeed.
Like unhealthy food is substantially cheaper than good food, so that's also kind of that situation that
Not
you're
as much
pointing
as you
out.
think, but yeah.
But it is cheaper at the end of the day. If they're pinching pennies, then ultimately they're gonna
But
weigh a cost
we
50
do
cents
not
less.
just. I have to interrupt you. Just so we're clear, we do not have a starvation crisis in America.
I would say that I think that
We
there
have an
are a lot of
obesity
issues
problem.
with it. I think that the thing is we don't have necessarily starvation crisis, but we have a mismanagement of resources to the point where kids are going hungry. I'm not sure the exact rate, but they are going hungry.
They're 10% of kids claim food insecurity.
That's 10% of kids.
But
That means that they don't know where the next meal's coming
we
from.
don't
That's
know what that
important.
term means. Half of our kids are clinically obese by the age of 15.
Okay, so
that's
let's
a
go on to
much
that a little
bigger
bit more.
problem than food insecurity.
Okay.
We have too much bad food being fed to our kids.
Okay, perfect. On to that argument again of food insecurity. That just means they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. That's what that means. But also more on to this specifically, I think that, again, obesity can be a problem to solve. But when there are kids that are going hungry, I do think it is a responsibility of the government. Because like I said, churches can't make laws. I think that they are important. But they cannot have the outreach and the standard of providing free lunches to school kids every single day because they can't afford food. They don't know if they're going to go home and have dinner on their table. So all I'm arguing here today, again, my final question before I get off is just, do you think that you are upholding your Christian values by not holding the government accountable when the government is the easiest way to get food to people?
No, I actually don't think it's the easiest way. I think that private charity, individuals helping individuals, is the best way to offer
But is
help.
that working enough right now, or should we
Well,
have a system to give free lunches to kids?
We do. That problem is you're actually living in the big government era, and it's not working. We spend hundreds of billions of dollars on your desired objective. We have food stamps. We have school-supported lunches. We have
Okay, how widespread are those school-supported
Very,
lunches?
incredibly.
Can you give me the statistics? Because
Yes.
because I know that growing up in the state of Idaho, I never once had a free school lunch unless, neither did anybody I know, unless it was during COVID.
I will say
During
something
COVID.
controversial, and I actually don't think it's the role of the state to feed a kid at school. It's the role of the parents to feed those kids.
Okay.
And you might say, oh, if the parents don't have money, the parents I think have to get more and more involved to taking care of your kids. And the more the state grows into that realm, the smaller it actually makes the American family. Final point.
Okay, one quick follow-up on that. I think that specifically, parents are often struggling. They often give up their own meals to give to their kids. But hang on,
That's a
let's move up
beautiful
to this.
thing. It is.
Okay, exactly. Now let's move, but they shouldn't have to. They should also be able to get food themselves. I think that the key argument here is that they need to be able, because the government has so many resources to provide food for people, and I think that if you are up here and that your religious values, I know that you're against gay marriage, and often that's by your religious values. So I would say that specifically when we look towards issues like that, if we're going to have some religious governance, you have to do what the Bible says over 2,000 times and provide food to the needy and help heal the needy.
Yes, and we do. And what I'm saying, though, is that it has been proven to really not work very well. The best way to help the needy.
Then do you not think it's the Christian duty then to find everything we absolutely can do to help them?
Yes, and we know how to do it, and that is the local church helping them.
Okay, perfect. So then do you think that also then comes from government ordinances and government support and tax cuts for the churches?
Well, first of all, churches don't pay taxes.
Well, that's what I meant. Like, no longer adding taxes, because I've seen those things that people want to add taxes to churches.
We shouldn't. No, they're tax-exempt organizations. But again, our view as Christians and conservatives is the government doesn't do it well. The government operates by force. And the local Christian nonprofit, the local Christian church, or whatever, it does a much better job of delivering help to those in need than a big government. Thank you for your time, though. Appreciate it.
You are contradicting yourself currently right there, because the government, if it's one religious way, you have to have all religious governance.
But it doesn't mean the state has to do it. Thank you.
I think it's the best means to make sure that everybody has food.
They're welcome to come up if they want. Yeah, come on up. Come on up.
Howdy, am I good here? Cool. Yeah, thanks for coming out. I'm really nervous, so sorry if I stutter at all. Yeah, thanks for coming out. My question is about the events surrounding the first impeachment trial of Donald Trump. I think the thing that makes America really special is, the phone call, events surrounding that, yeah. I think the thing that makes America really special is that we were founded on liberal democratic values, and that we have a model for liberal democracy better than any other country in the world. I didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2024 because I think he has a fundamental disrespect for liberal democratic values, and I think that was reflected really well in the Trump-Ukraine scandal in 2019. Would you be willing to talk about that?
Yeah, briefly. People don't even remember that impeachment. I mean, there's usually much more pressing matters than the 2019 impeachment hoax. But yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but America was actually not founded on liberal democratic values, so we can debate that. It was actually far more of a small c conservative classical view of government.
Just to clarify, I don't mean liberal as in like the liberals.
No, I understand. You mean enlightenment, you mean reason. I got it.
Yeah.
It's a blend. There's some elements of that. There's also some more elements of small c conservative classical doctrine in there. But we could put that aside.
Yeah, I mean,
but
separation
fine.
of
Why don't
powers,
you,
right?
as quickly as you can? I know you said you're nervous. It's fine.
Yeah.
State your case of what you think. Why you think Trump's 2019 phone call was a disqualifier.
Yeah. So I think not just the phone call, but the events surrounding the phone call. That he suspended congressionally approved aid in an attempt, explicitly in an attempt to coerce a foreign government to investigate a political opponent and the DNC servers. I thought that was contemptible. I also thought that the cover-up afterwards was really bad, and then I thought the refusal to comply with House Judiciary Committee subpoenas was really condemnable. I think all of those things reflect bad on our democracy.
Okay, well, we're not a democracy, we're a republic, but it's fine.
It reflects
Yes.
poorly on our
I mean,
constitutional republic.
that's the reason you didn't vote for Trump? I mean, like, that's...
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, was he...
I mean, one of the
Was he
reasons, but
convicted of the impeachment?
No.
So he was acquitted?
Yeah. I mean, the Government Accountability Office found that what he did was illegal, right? Freezing funds.
Again, presidents freeze funds all the time.
Well,
Under that statute, when Joe Biden was vice president, he was on camera saying that we're going to freeze Ukrainian funds unless you approve a very specific energy project that Hunter Biden was on the board
Okay,
of.
I'm gonna just respectfully. I don't mean this in a rude way, but I don't want to really get into a whataboutism. What you're saying about
But
Joe
it's the
Biden could
standard
be
of whether we
completely-
hold leaders
No,
accountable.
you're completely right. You're completely right, and that's a huge discussion to have. It's an important discussion to have. I specifically want to get your thoughts on this impeachment trial
I
with Trump,
completely
right?
disagree. It was again, it's very admittedly, like, I'm dusty on this topic
Okay.
because it's from 2019 and that's 6 years ago. From what I remember, it was a singular phone call that Trump had with Zelensky that was probably illegally listened to by Eric Cimarella, the whistleblower from the intelligence community, that then probably illegally leaked it to the House Democrats. And the contention was that Trump was holding up aid for political purposes. Yeah, I see no such evidence of that whatsoever. Trump actually gave a lot of aid to Ukraine back in 2019.
Right.
Again, and let's just make this the final point because the audience isn't tracking with
Okay,
this.
could I just make one more point?
Yes,
Is
thank
that the Mick Mulvaney actually said explicitly that the reason Trump instructed him to block the aid to Ukraine was so that they would investigate the DNC server conspiracy and Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine.
Okay, I'll have to go back into my
Okay.
memory more to
Okay.
think about that.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you for your
All
time.
right, I exit this way?
Whichever other way.
Okay, gotcha. Thank
Thank
you so
for the
much.
respect.
Take care.
Thank you.
Hey,
The corruption in Ukraine was already proven. There's tons of corruption. They showed pictures of all the businessmen living lavish lifestyles. Their families are completely safe from deployment or any sort of frontal push. All of them, I believe they even proved that Obama gave them a bunch of money that they openly robbed and no one did anything about it recently. And they just said to ignore it and bury it because it would look embarrassing for Obama that they scammed him and made him look like a fool. So again, their political philosophy is shaky when it comes to a bunch of white ethno states that they suddenly give them a bunch of resources because you'll start to understand what exactly it means to support a country that's just going to extort their own people and then run, because this is a consequence of a lot of the capitalist ideology is that they'll extort their own people during the worst times, and then they'll take as much money as possible and jump ship to another country because they were never loyal to one country. They're always loyal to money. And their prophet, their god, the one they worship, is money. It is return on their investment.
is my voice well on the mic? Oh. All right. So before I ask my question, I want to say that it's disrespectful for you to come on our campus and say we shouldn't get any money. After those two guys, it was.
Bought a ticket to be here.
Well, hold on. I mean,
I didn't. I'm a student.
I said that donors shouldn't give money to the school. How that's disrespectful? Like,
Well, like if you're coming on our campus, I think it is
why? I
disrespectful.
mean, the first two questions I get are people that come with a awful image, making fun of me. Someone that is screaming and yelling and doing swear words. Like, that's a bad first example of what your campus is producing, right?
yeah.
So
I
maybe
think
they're the ones
but
disrespectful, not me. Thank you for your time. We got to the next question. Thank you. You guys got to be on your guard. You guys have been getting a little sleep there. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Charlie. First of all, thank you for being here, and it's an honor to get to talk to you today. My biggest question is about the DEI bill that was just passed through the Idaho Senate. So Idaho Senate Bill 1198.
Can you educate me on it? I don't know about it.
Yeah, of course. So the DEI bill, it was passed about 2 weeks ago through the Idaho Senate. It is basically not allowing any Idaho college or university to have DEI programs, like diversity, equity, and inclusivity. My main question for you today is how does that affect, what is the reason for doing that for non-minorities? So why is it even a thing, basically?
So DEI came out of the 1960s and 70s with this idea in the post-civil rights movement that we need to hyper-racialize how we hire and how we configure our corporations and our campuses based on race and not based on merit. So when you prioritize equity, you then will compromise excellence. And so we should strive to have institutions like Boise State or University of Idaho that are merit-based and not race-based in its admissions, its hiring, and how it actually conducts itself.
Oh yeah, I totally understand. But the only people that really lose anything from this would be people of color or LGBTQ plus students.
However,
which that's
I like that guy.
But like how I obviously understand merit, but and I obviously can even understand like defunding these programs, but what is the point of getting rid of them altogether?
Well, because they exist to actually elevate unqualified people that might be of that skin color persuasion into certain positions. And so we should not, you are right, it might hurt certain people of color that were hired for reasons that they shouldn't have been. And so, however, a very qualified black individual or a very qualified Hispanic should not be faced by DEI because they will be able to be judged on what Martin Luther King said we should be, the content of one's character, not the color of your skin.
Yeah, I can totally.
Yeah, so what he's talking about is tokenism. There's a lot of tokenism on the left, a lot of white liberalism, which results in a lot of how do you say, unqualified people with degrees. And this unqualified plague of people that are people of color with degrees is associated with the fact that anyone who gets any opportunity, any sort of handout, is oftentimes given to people who give customer service voice or give themselves off as a clean look, because a lot of these people don't actually value true intellectual capability. This is why a lot of the people on the left fail, because they have these very smiley people that ask non-controversial questions. They attack a lot of the Latinos and try to divide them and try to attack black people as well, because if any of them had to go into the impoverished areas, they would discriminate against them, put them down. And then if you ever call them racist for it, they would bring out their tokens or their people of color who would defend them unconditionally, and they will attack you with them. This is why a lot of the times people with DEI, all the systems that donated to the left, for example, none of those leftist corporations stuck with DEI. If DEI was such an effective system to get people to the top of society, they would have kept it there even if it got struck down. Because you can still get people inside of corporations without telling them you're doing it because of their skin color. It's called actually seeing someone who's qualified for that position. This is why a lot of the people on the left side oftentimes pick out people who are seen as how do you say, a preference of just whitewash. They don't think about people that are intelligent. This is why you have a lot of people with degrees who, once they finish their degree, don't educate themselves further. They don't continue their education because they're too busy robbing black and brown people who are truly actually intelligent of their ideas. And if a black or a brown person who is qualified to be there actually gets put there, the jealousy then becomes them taking them down, which happened to me because a lot of people in DEI or situations that are not qualified would oftentimes push you down if you have a good idea that's better than theirs because they're insecure. This is why a lot of these people use white people as tokens, black people and brown people, and create a diverse KKK that is utilized to push people down repeatedly. I've experienced this multiple times where people pretended I was not an idea maker, I was not a great person or a good person with intellectual capability, and then you will see the leftists suddenly bring out the Klan hood and push the KKK. This is why there's a lot of infiltration on the left, a lot of infiltration in socialist Democrats, and a lot of white liberalism that pushes more racism than the Republicans can, because the Republicans just openly just want a fair equal system based on their Darwinistic principles, which is the strongest will survive, which is oftentimes the people with more resources and logistics. This is why the left oftentimes looks for the more simple people. People who have degrees, but you're so surprised they have a degree because of how simple they are and how ununique their conversations are, that it just seems like the same copy-pasted ideologies that come from a lot of their leaderships that are just not getting anywhere. They don't think for themselves, they don't actually add any pioneering or engineering ideas, and they oftentimes just fail overall, because if black and brown people were actually getting these jobs and earned it, they wouldn't need an entire program to go up there and make them feel better. They, if anything, got minimized and subtracted from, because now when they made it after a long time of working hard, they just threw someone up there for no reason that clearly is not qualified. And then if you try to argue that, you're now suddenly a racist, fascist, or a Nazi, because you won't accept people who are just simply unqualified for their positions. This is why a lot of the leftists oftentimes go toward white people and oftentimes get educated by white people, and why a lot of the people in the leftist orgs, such as AOC, Ilhan Omar, or Kamala Harris, are all with white people as partners because they like more competent people, more civilized people, and more understandable people. If they had men that were earning it, they probably would go with black or brown. But judging by their preferences and their choices, they hate black and brown people, which is why a lot of the ideology that they try to push never goes all the way, because all the corporations mimic their behavior patterns, which are that of a white conservative that has learned from a bunch of systems that it's progressive that the right wing has given them, which is why progressive values come from the right wing. This is why a lot of the times when you see a lot of white men on the left, they are people who learned from the strict and the horrible nature of which the right wing has done, and then they take it and go to the left wing where you have very easy to use women, naive women, people who aren't that intelligent even with their degrees because they are just simple people that are easy to take advantage of. This is why oftentimes when you go for leadership on the left, you usually end up with status quo Joe, which is Joe Biden as a whole, which used to have a history of saying the N word all the time, also known as pushing segregationist policies, and then becoming friends with the only black president, which is then a half white man who pushes for a bunch of racist policies like increasing police funding during BLM, increasing the institutions of border police, and as well as the internment camps that we now call modern day Auschwitz, to imprison a bunch of Latinos and black people in an increased budgeted environment. And then if you side with anyone on the left in any way that hurts their feelings, they will try to get you fired. They'll try to make you homeless, which if you let these DEI people into your company, they will now become the armed wing of just oppressing anyone who actually earned their way to the top. This issue, of course, is an ideology of just oppression. This is why every single corporation, once again, got rid of DEI because any person that supported DEI never thought it completely through. This is why anyone that tries to side with it unconditionally usually falls flat in any discussions or arguments other than this is just racist, this is just wrong. And then anyone who is actually intellectually capable of starting a program that can help people get there through earning it is just seen as a greasy communist because the socialist Democrats don't actually want to push for policies that win. They just like making money to pay the rent monthly and then bring up any black or brown person they can use as a token to say this person used to be homeless or this person used to be on EBT and this person made it out, so can you. This is again putting people on pedestals of failure, which oftentimes looks like the worst life you've ever seen and somehow is supposed to inspire people to do better, while all the people who come from nepotist backgrounds have rich families, rich backings, and come from an established background, which they hide all the time because they're ashamed of it, and then show you their biggest failures to be more relatable to a lot of black and brown. This is why oftentimes when you see people like Hassan Piker, he has a pony when he was a child and extremely rich. You have someone like AOC, which had a big house and big establishment until someone passed away in her family, then had to get EBT stamps, and then became successful anyway by hanging out with mainly white people. Then you have someone like Kamala Harris, who jailed black people to get ahead, to get some credit with a lot of white people. You have Obama, who went to go visit Africa to find out he never wants to go in a black neighborhood ever again. Then when you try to establish any sort of understanding of reality and you try to acknowledge this and talk to them to let them know that the only black or brown people who are poor are just kissing up to anyone in power because they're scared that any of those rich spoiled people that are tokens would suddenly use their unprivileged ideology, which is that they are now victimized, to push you down further in the same way the white supremacists would, except white supremacy in this nation is just hardworking white Americans who get their way to the top and forget black and brown people even exist to begin with, because a lot of them fail at the very notion of ever even getting an education to begin with. And so there's a caste system with a lot of these socialists that are really just failed communists that sit themselves at the top of the ladder to make fun of anyone who is actually black or brown or extremely impoverished in order to make themselves seem like a superior race or superior class that all depend on white men. For white people, this is probably one of the biggest hypocrisies that you see on the left, is that every single candidate marries a white man, engages with a white man, or makes apologia for a white man's rapist ideology like Hassan Piker and any one of his friends like Jared Selig, who are associated with a bunch of rapist, pedophilic ideology, or even thuggish gangster mentalities in order to threaten anyone on the left who is black and brown and then say, I can't be a racist, I have a black friend. Which is why a lot of them try to utilize black people as a key or a token to say, how can I be racist if I know this person? How can I I be racist if I've slept with these people before? Or how can I be racist if I actually understand white supremacy through a perspective of a book rather than the perspective of experiences? This is why understanding racial politics is something that's very simple, because in a society where you can uplift yourself and actually work hard to get ahead, the biggest issue is addressing that the leadership is the biggest failure that we have ever seen, because none of them can inspire any intellectual people of color. They just want to prove that all intellectual people of color are all fascist or Nazi to make themselves feel better about pushing people down or ignoring them as a whole. This is why they have this mentality that anyone who is rich or powerful is clearly intelligent but didn't earn it. But if you have an intelligent person that doesn't have any money, they will suddenly call them a billionaire or a rich person or a super genius that just ends up a pedophile or a Nazi or a rapist, just like Donald Trump or Elon Musk. And then they devalue the term Nazi, pedophile, or rapist to then give a bunch of apologia toward rapists and pedophiles and Nazis, because now everyone is a pedophile, rapist, Nazi. This is why a lot of them will use gang tactics to threaten people in people of color communities. And when you see that gangster mentality in a lot of corporations, you tend to not like them anymore on the basis that they just take Molly or cocaine and sleep with their coworkers, and then when you expose them, you're oppressing their sexuality. This is why a lot of people don't appreciate the left, because a lot of their leftist mentalities usually correlate with a perverted ideology, a racist ideology, and when you see it exploit a bunch of people of color who are actually intellectual, you get tired of a lot of their nonsense or a lot of their lies, because no one really wants to understand them because they're hypocrites. This is why their hypocrisy, their racism, their hatred toward people of color is proven by the lacking of people who actually experienced the backfire of a lot of this CRT and DEI, because it was used against people of color, not actually to help people. And what happened when DEI was applied, white people who had friends who were black or brown who didn't deserve to get leveled up became the leveled up people, and black and brown people who are actually working hard to earn their way to the top were ignored. This is just nepotism amplified. This is why a lot of the socialist policies just enhance white supremacy and enhance a lot of Republican conversion, because once you make your first 6 or 7 figures because you kissed up to a white man, why would you ever kiss up to a socialist or a leftist ever again? This is why the company is the one that owns the people, and when you kiss up to the company, you're kissing up to the business owner, not the socialist or the union. This is why a lot of DEI policies backfired, because they help people get more money and help solidify the capitalist right-wing agenda, while completely abandoning everyone who actually works hard at the bottom, because they assume all the smart people are just future traders, because as soon as you make your own money by getting platformed, they assume you're going to betray. So they're looking for the same slave plantation that a lot of capitalists use in order to level up the only ones that they like personally, in order to create a nepotist circle that is hypocritical to the ideology of spreading out the wealth to everybody. This is why the slave plantation is discussed a lot of the times with the Republican parties, because the Democrat Party or the Liberal Party or the Soc Dem Party, really all the same, they all use the same idea that if you're an extremist, extreme loyalist, you get to get rich and become a millionaire, and you get all these sex workers, and you get all these union jobs, and you get all this fantasy ideology, but really it's attachment to whoever you're attached to at the top. And if you're someone who actually earned something, you get nothing, because now you're a smart person, which is a threat to their hierarchy. Once you get to a position of power or prominence, you're now someone they're going to have to take out or destroy, because they're insecure about themselves, insecure about their degrees, insecure about their ideology, and don't actually have a plan for the future at all. This is why a lot of the times the leftist ideology fails, because their ideology is not really built on anything that's meant to sustain itself. It really just sells off a bunch of smart black and brown people in their eyes to the Republican side, because if you're smart enough to understand going with the Republican side gets you more money, you end up leaving the left side overall, which is the issue they all have by supporting unions, because as soon as unions make enough money, they end up jumping ship to get ahead. And then when you find people who are actually loyal to the leftist side, you'll find out that they, giving them any leniency of socialism or any sort of understanding, they will push you down and they will destroy your image and reputation, because now you're something they can use, especially if you're not related to them in any sort of personal relationships or nepotist circles. They will see you as something to throw away and no one will care about, and they'll throw you into homelessness, which is the issue a lot of people have, because a lot of these communists and socialists as a whole are oftentimes using this ideology to threaten people into poverty, which is where the narrative of a lot of people saying that a lot of the socialists as a whole are pushing people down and not actually uplifting them, and it's a failed system because it's associated with rich, spoiled people who pretend they're there for the working class. Oftentimes, if you ever talk to these people, they're anti-leftist and they're anti-socialist because they don't actually apply socialism. They're just there to snitch on any black or brown person who's actually joining the organization, to look down on them if they're questioning any authority. This is why if you ever join a socialist circle, you're going to find a lot of white liberals, and a lot of them are extremely coded toward being in a safe zone and saying the right things at the right time to feel better about everything, because they don't actually have an ideology worth standing on.
I really understand that for sure.
You got to go all the way around. All right. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Any disagreements, guys? Come to the front. Boomer Sooner, you got here.
What? Yeah. It's good?
You got to show us your hands, though.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, we have had weird people, as you can imagine.
Of course, yeah.
Get a couple death threats, so yeah.
My name is Dre. Nice to finally see you after seeing you countless times on my TikTok. Basically, you were talking about